someone, yeah.
How did your family react?
Well, I sent my mother the letter, and my aunt was the intermediary. My mother wouldn't talk to me. My father had accepted me in that article I told. He wanted me to be the best adjusted homosexual in the world. He read my diary. And in my diary, I had fallen in love with this boy in the freshman year of college and had resolved that I was going to go to Arizona, rob a bank, send him the money, and commit suicide. And that's the diary that my father read. And he came running out to Arizona to tell me that he loved me, that I was his son, and he just wanted me to be the best adjusted homosexual that I could be. But he hadn't told my mother, because he said my mother could never accept it. My mother was a right-wing Republican. You know, she was against ERA, because why should women step down to equality? All her life, my father had put her on a pedestal, and my father had given everything to give me an education, to give his wife everything. He was the utterly dutiful father. As a matter of fact, part of my acceptance of my own gayness, I hope I don't offend the women in the audience, was that I said, oh, thank God I won't be a slave to women. Because my idea was that guys, they were crazy over these girls, they had to open the door for them, they had to buy 2 tickets to go to the movie theater, you know, I mean, it was all of this stuff that went on, which is true today, and then they wouldn't put out, you know, my image of women were sexless harridans like my mother. I went to ask my mother what FUCK meant, and she picked up the irons that she was going to throw at me. You know, I should ask my father about things like that. And I shouldn't talk to boys that said that word. But you know, I mean, my mother finally, at the age of 80, she said that her driver, at that point she had gotten disabled, Alzheimer's was starting to set in. She said, you know, my driver has a daughter who's that way. What can you do? You know, that isn't really acceptance. When I had my first long-term relationship, she remarried. My father died at 49 and she remarried. So I said, can I bring Peter home for Christmas dinner? I shouldn't have had to ask that. And there was this long pause. And finally, my mother said yes. And the one time that maybe my mother in certain ways came through, when my first lover, my second lover, the David Combs, who I was with from 72 to 1990, 18 years, was dying of AIDS. I was wondering what I would do, where I'd bury him. You know, it's like $5,000 for a hole in a memorial garden. So I asked my mother if I could bury my lover with my father. And she said yes. So, you know, even people that are stuck in the past, like my mother, you know, she was president of the Women's Club. And my mother was the biggest woman hater of all. My mother would say, you know, nothing there but a bunch of damn women. That's what she did, nothing but a bunch of damn women, over and over again. And I couldn't believe it. She was president of the Reserve Officers Club, and she married a brigadier general of the Army Reserve, who was a good friend of Strom Thurmond, who he knew to be a man of character. Well, they came to visit me once in my room, and I have some pastel artwork in my bedroom, which is rather graphic of my homosexual intercourse on the top of mountains. I'll leave the details to your imagination. They never came back. He would never come back to my apartment after spending one night there. But, you know, the general was cool. I mean, it was really cool because, see, my mother was really grasping and greedy. She was very poor. She had nothing. And she buried my father and caught her second husband by faking a suicide. The general rushed over and proposed, so a month after her attempted suicide, they have her inferred off on a Caribbean vacation. Well, when the dust all settled, my mother, who I really hated my mother. My mother was a hateful, horrible person. I mean, I can tell the time that I came home, I was 4 years old, and I told her that I had met a new friend, a little N boy, and his daddy. They were coming over the next day at 3:30, and my mother laughed. And the next day, I had met this kid, young boy, my age, 4 or 5 years old, and his father, remember, he was being limping and being very warm, old soul, I think you might call it, right? And I was only this high. And my mother stood there behind the screen and told this man and that boy, they call me Buddy at the time, Buddy can't come out and play, Buddy can't come out and play, Buddy can't come out and play. And I felt so horrible, and yet it was something I could do as a child. But my mother reflected, she was ashamed of having tuberculosis because only people that lived in Philly had tuberculosis. But to her credit, after 1972, driving through downtown Birmingham, Alabama, she rolled down the window. The Klansmen were out there demonstrating. My mother shouted to them, "If you're so damn proud of what you stand for, why don't you show your face?" And my stepsister, I never spent any time with it, Iris, shut up, you're going to cause us trouble. But you know, everybody, they're always shades, you know what I mean? And I think my mother, she tried to accept me, and in the end, as I tell people, I didn't think I'd get much. My mother died, and she left me $600,000. Now there's a shrine to my mother in my living room. I love my mother. My mother is so easy to love in death. Much easier to love in death than she ever was in life. And I say that, and it's funny, because to tell you the truth, she was grasping and selfish, and that is how she managed to get, and I ultimately became the beneficiary of all that. And people will tell you, generally speaking, that one of my people used to always say to me that I was overly generous to the wrong people. You know, I mean, I was always feeding homeless people and taking in. Some friends accused me of collecting cripples. You know, I always had 2 or 3 people living off of me, paying their rent. You know, because I don't like living alone. My father told me that my mother couldn't stand to live alone. That's why she and I fought so much. So I think I have that trait from my mother. But every now and then I squander a little money on something frivolous, and I think, oh, mother made this possible. My new camera, you know, a few new clothes, you know. And I'm going to enjoy every dollar, because I can tell you, this man I just took care of, he died. He wouldn't put a new air conditioner in the window through 20 months. I mean, 2 summers of horrible heat. The last August the 15th, he put in one for $150. He left an estate of over $50,000. I mean, he knew he was near the, I mean, why don't people know? I mean, the ideal thing is, for me, would be to spend my last dollar on the last day I was alive. Now, I don't think any of us can really do that. But, you know, you really have to sniff the flowers. My aunt used to say, smell the flowers along the way, you know, as you go through life. And that's very important. And the things that sometimes you don't think are important become the fondest and warmest memories you have. And they're the things that pick you up when you get down. And if you ever get down, the most important thing is to go for a walk, to change the environment. I got down and I discovered Japanese popular music, and somehow it just gave me new wind beneath my wings.